friends, Chubby Meeple here to take a look at yet another game. Recently, Ninja Division made the announcement that they had acquired the rights to a couple of games published by Wyvern Gaming and will be looking to distribute those widely starting in Q1 here of 2017 and another game coming out in Q2 of the same year. So I want to take a look at one of those games today, and that game we're going to talk about today is Cthulhu, a deck building game originally published by Wyvern Gaming and again soon to be distributed by Ninja Division. Let's go to the table, check it out, see how it plays, and I'll come back here and tell you what I think of Cthulhu deck building game and if you should pick this one up or not. In Cthulhu, a deck building game, each player will take on the role of an investigator who is working to save the world from the Elder Gods and their various minions that will spawn through the course of the game. Players will use Moxie, which is the single resource in the game, to acquire new cards from Miskatonic University through doing research, and that Moxie is also used to attack the various Elder Gods and minions that will come out as play progresses. Players will begin with a starting hand of 5 cards. Now you'll have a personal library of 10 cards, and everyone will start with the same 10 cards. You'll have 3 of these stagger cards, which are basically there to just gum up your deck. And then you also have these sleuth cards that give you 1 Moxie. So you'll have a deck that starts with 7 sleuth cards, 3 stagger cards. You'll shuffle those up and leave that in front of you to start your forming deck, and then you'll deal out a hand of 5 cards. Now, as you're playing, if you're familiar with deck builders, the play is should be very familiar. You take your hand of 5 cards, you play the cards themselves. So in this case, I have 3 sleuth cards, 2 stagger cards. Now, of course, the stagger cards are basically your kind of worthless cards in this case, so we can toss those aside. But I have 3 Moxie that I can use to either acquire cards from Miskatonic University. So for a cost of 3, I could bring in this voodoo doll. A cost of 4, I could bring in a sword, pick up the crucifix. Each one of these things is going to do different items. You can acquire spells, equipment, action cards, all through doing your research. But you have to be careful because Moxie is your single resource. So if I spend all 3 of my Moxie that I've acquired from these 3 sleuth cards, and if I spend that and I acquire this voodoo doll, which is going to any damage taken by my investigator that played this card is also dealt to the Elder God this round. So a little effective. He's going to hit me, I'm going to hit him back kind of card. But if I spend my Moxie to acquire that card, I now have no Moxie to spend during the combat phase when it gets here, because Moxie is also how I fight. So if I've spent my Moxie on buying things or doing my research, as they call it in this game, I have nothing left to battle the minions or to battle the Elder God until my next turn. So play is going to progress around the table until all of the players have gone through their planning phase of drawing their hands, doing preparation and research, and then there's also a final preparation step where you can play cards that can kind of help abate combat, defense cards in a way. Cards that will, if you haven't used cards for Moxie for purchasing, you can now play those Moxie cards to give you Moxie to use during combat. When you get to your combat phase, the Elder God is going to strike. So in this case, Cthulhu at the start of the combat phase, every card played by an investigator during the combat phase, that investigator will automatically lose 1 sanity. So I'll lose a sanity point for every card that I play during the combat phase. So the Elder God is going to do his action. Then the Mythos phase happens. In the Mythos phase, you turn up the top card of the Mythos deck here, and you do whatever it says. So in this case, we have a Time Bender. Time seemingly reverts back to before any locations existed, so destroy all active locations. In this case, there's nothing because there aren't any locations down here, but if there were, we would destroy those locations. That card simply gets discarded. Now the minion phase, if we had minions that had been spawned out here in the enemy section, those minions would attack and do damage based on whatever their cards read. And there's a whole slew of minions that can spawn. You have blue flame elementals there, of course your typical cultists and zombies that are in here, the 1,000 young. You will also have star spawn on here that will come out. So as the star spawn come out, if 4 of these are ever active on the board, another Elder God awakens. So you can end up fighting multiple Elder Gods over the course of a single game. But the play will continue around the table as players use their Moxie to research cards from Miskatonic University. Once all that has been done, we move to the combat phase where the Elder God, the Mythos phase happens, the minions attack, then the investigators get to attack with any Moxie that they've saved up or any items that they're going to use to do damage. choosing whether to attack the minions that are on the board, if there are any, or attacking directly the Elder God. That play will continue until either all investigators are dead, or the Elder God or gods have been eliminated from the game. And so it is a fully cooperative deck building game as well. Once that happens, the game ends, and whichever side came out on top is declared the winner. Cthulhu, a deck building game. Wyvern Gaming, Ninja Division. Definitely enjoy this game. Obviously, we have a lot of deck builders that are out and about in the world today, and there seem to be new ones that come out all the time. But when a new deck builder comes along, it really needs to introduce some new mechanisms, some new gameplay to really set itself apart. I feel like Cthulhu does that in a couple of different ways. First of all, the Moxie, having one resource to manage, one resource that you use to acquire new cards as well as do your combat. A little bit different of a mechanism. Most deck building games that are out there, you have some sort of resource you use to acquire cards, and then there's a separate resource that is used to attack whatever, evil doers or whatever else there may be in the game, to do your attacks. It's usually separate. In Cthulhu, you have Moxie that does both. So having to balance and kind of strategize, how much of this Moxie do I want to spend to acquire these cards? Am I hurting myself by spending too much? So that's a fantastic implementation of the resource. I also really enjoy the fact that there's variable player powers in the investigators that play. Each investigator has their own power, their own secret ability, or not really secret ability, but their own special ability that can be used throughout the course of the game to just add and spice up the gameplay, and it plays differently each time. The stack of library cards that you have for Miskatonic University that you're doing your research in, the stack of that cards is insanely huge. So there are going to be equipment, spells, actions that you're not going to see in every game. You're not going to see in a lot of those games that you play. So it's going to switch it up every time. I like the unpredictability of the Mythos deck, and I feel like it fits really well with the theme of H.P. Lovecraft, some of the other Lovecraft games that I've played where you hit that Mythos phase and you don't know what's coming. Some of those are app driven. This one here is a deck of cards. I really like that as well. The artwork in the game, very dark, very grim. I mean, if you take a look at that, the zombie there is really gross. The guy about to get something jammed in his eye. So, kind of dark and grim, but it's very fitting with the Cthulhu H.P. Lovecraft world. So I really do enjoy the artwork there. Look for this one. This one's going to be hitting sometime here in Q1 of 2017. I believe they're going to be doing some corrections to some of the cards. I know some of the cards the company's already posted some errata on their website. Wyvern Gaming has posted some corrections to some of the cards. Some of them had incorrect costs, for example, and things like that. So I think they're going to be doing some corrections before they actually re-release it. But I would look for this. It's fun if you're a fan of deck building games, if you're a fan of Cthulhu. This covers both really well. It does a fantastic job of kind of separating itself in the way that it plays. So it's not like every other deck builder that's out there, and it's really, really, really difficult because it just ramps up. The difficulty just ramps up and gets crazy through there. So, there are a lot of times I've played this where it just felt absolutely hopeless, like we weren't going to succeed. So definitely check this out. Cthulhu, a deck building game. It'll be hitting shelves in Q1. And until next time, I'm the Chubby Meeple. Keep gaming, everyone.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.